The 2 weeks passed slowly. Elena kept working her night shifts, cleaning the same floors, emptying the same trash bins. But now people looked at her differently. Some smiled with pity. Others avoided her eyes completely. She heard them whispering when they thought she could not hear. Poor woman. She does not understand what she is doing. Petrov will destroy her in 10 moves. Elena said nothing. She went home each night and studied. She reviewed all of Petrov's games that she could find in the club's database. She had written down dozens of them over the years, memorizing the positions, understanding his patterns. Now she studied them even more carefully, looking for the small mistakes, the moments when his aggressive style left weaknesses behind. Her daughter noticed she was not sleeping much. "Mama, you look tired. Are you sick?" "I am fine," Elena said, just thinking. "About the chess game?" "Yes." Her daughter sighed. "Mama, please do not do this. People will laugh at you. You work so hard, you do not need this embarrassment." Elena looked at her daughter with soft eyes. "All my life I have been invisible. I clean floors. I empty trash. People look through me like I am glass. Just once I want to do something that matters to me. Just once." Her daughter started to cry. "You matter to me, Mama. You do not have to prove anything." "I am not proving anything," Elena said gently. "I am just playing chess." On the day of the event, Elena woke up early. She ironed her best dress, a simple gray one she wore to church. She combed her hair carefully and pinned it back. Her hands were steady now. The fear had gone away, replaced by something calm and clear. She arrived at the chess club at noon. The event started at 1 o'clock. Already the main hall was filling with people. There were more people than Elena had ever seen there before. They came for the spectacle, to watch the Grandmaster play against ordinary people, to see how quickly he would win. Someone had set up a big demonstration board at the front of the room. It was like a giant chessboard standing up, with pieces that could be moved to show everyone what was happening in each game. Rows of chairs faced the board. Almost all of them were already full. Elena signed in at the desk. The woman there looked at her with surprise. "You are really playing?" "Yes." "Okay. You are number 7 on the list. It might be a few hours. You can wait over there." Elena sat in a chair near the back. She watched as the first player went up to challenge Petrov. He was a young man, maybe 25, wearing an expensive suit. He walked with confidence, shaking hands with people, smiling and laughing. Someone said he was a champion at his college. The game started. Petrov played white, moving his pieces quickly and surely. The young man played fast too, trying to match the Grandmaster's speed. But speed was a trap. By move 15, the young man was in trouble. By move 19, it was over. Petrov had won. The crowd clapped politely. The young man shook Petrov's hand and walked away, his face red. The second player was an old man, a professor from the university. He lasted longer, 23 moves, but the result was the same. Petrov won easily. Then came a 12-year-old girl, a local prodigy everyone talked about. She was supposed to be brilliant, they said. She had won every junior tournament in the state, but against Petrov she looked like a beginner. He crushed her in 18 moves. The girl left the board with tears in her eyes. One by one, the challengers came and went. A businessman who played online, a retired champion from another city, a woman who had studied with a famous coach. None of them lasted more than 25 moves. Petrov beat them all, barely looking interested. Between games, he drank water and checked his phone. Sometimes he yawned. Elena watched everything. She saw how Petrov always did the same things. He attacked on the king's side, pushing his pawns forward like soldiers. He brought his queen out early, putting pressure on his opponent. He made his opponents feel rushed, scared, defensive. And when they tried to defend, they made mistakes. Finally, after 3 hours, the woman at the desk called her name. Elena Martinez. The room got very quiet. People turned to look. They saw a middle-aged woman in a plain dress walking slowly toward the front. Some people looked confused. Others smiled, ready to be entertained. Elena walked to the playing table and sat down across from Petrov. The Grandmaster looked up from his phone. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or contempt. He put his phone away and looked at her like she was wasting his time. The club director came over looking nervous. He leaned down and whispered to Elena, "Are you sure about this? There is no shame in changing your mind. I can take your name off the list." "I am sure," Elena said quietly. The director straightened up and spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "Our next challenger is Elena Martinez. She works here at the club. Let us give her a warm welcome." A few people clapped, but most just whispered to each other. Elena heard some of the words. "The cleaning lady? This is ridiculous. How long do you think she will last? 10 moves?" "Less. 5 moves." Petrov did not offer to shake hands. He just nodded once, cold and formal, and reached for his king's pawn. The game had begun. Elena took a breath and looked at the board. All the noise around her faded away. The whispers, the doubts, the pity in people's eyes. None of it mattered now. There was just the board, 64 squares, 32 pieces, and infinite possibilities. Petrov pushed his pawn to e4, his favorite opening move. Elena had seen him play this move 100 times. She knew what would come next. She moved her pawn to c5, the Sicilian defense. It was a fighting defense, not passive. It told Petrov she was not afraid. The Grandmaster's eyebrow raised slightly. He moved his knight out. Elena responded, developing her own pieces. The opening continued, both players following known patterns, testing each other. Around them, the crowd started to settle into their seats. They expected this to be quick. They were already thinking about the next game or about dinner or about going home. But something strange was happening. The game was not ending quickly. Elena was not making obvious mistakes. Her moves were solid, reasonable, even good. By move 10, some of the club's better players began to pay closer attention. "She knows what she is doing," someone whispered. "That is not possible," another person replied. "She is the cleaning woman." "Well, she is playing good moves." Petrov was playing faster now, moving his pieces with sharp clicks against the board. He was attacking, as he always did, pushing his pawns forward, bringing his pieces toward Elena's king. But Elena did not panic. She moved carefully, defending, but also watching for chances. At move 15, Elena made a move that caused several people to lean forward. She moved her knight to a square that looked strange, almost random. Some people in the crowd frowned, confused, but the club's best player, an old man named Thomas, suddenly stood up. "That is brilliant," he said loudly. People turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" someone asked. Thomas pointed at the demonstration board. "Look, she has just set up a trap. If Petrov takes the pawn he is threatening, she has a counterattack that wins material. If he does not take it, she gets time to castle and her king will be safe." Petrov had seen it too. His hand, which had been moving quickly all game, now paused. He looked at the position more carefully. His face showed concentration for the first time. The crowd was completely quiet now. No one was whispering. No one was checking their phone. Everyone was watching. Petrov made his move, avoiding the trap. Elena responded immediately. The pieces moved back and forth, thrust and parry, attack and defense. 20 moves, 25 moves, 30 moves. Elena was still there. She had not lost. She was not even losing. People began to stand up, moving closer to get a better view. The club director stood with his mouth open, unable to believe what he was seeing. Other players who had already lost to Petrov came back into the room, drawn by the whispers that something impossible was happening. The cleaning woman was playing real chess. She was playing like a master. Petrov was no longer checking his phone between moves. He was no longer yawning. He sat forward in his chair, studying the board, his sharp eyes moving from piece to piece. For the first time all day he looked like he was in a real game. And Elena sat across from him, her worn hands folded in her lap, her face calm and peaceful, waiting for his next move. The 2 weeks passed slowly. Elena kept working her night shifts, cleaning the same floors, emptying the same trash bins. But now people looked at her differently. Some smiled with pity. Others avoided her eyes completely. She heard them whispering when they thought she could not hear. Poor woman. She does not understand what she is doing. Petrov will destroy her in 10 moves. Elena said nothing. She went home each night and studied. She reviewed all of Petrov's games that she could find in the club's database. She had written down dozens of them over the years, memorizing the positions, understanding his patterns. Now she studied them even more carefully, looking for the small mistakes, the moments when his aggressive style left weaknesses behind. Her daughter noticed she was not sleeping much. "Mama, you look tired. Are you sick?" "I am fine," Elena said, just thinking. "About the chess game?" "Yes." Her daughter sighed. "Mama, please do not do this. People will laugh at you. You work so hard, you do not need this embarrassment." Elena looked at her daughter with soft eyes. "All my life I have been invisible. I clean floors. I empty trash. People look through me like I am glass. Just once I want to do something that matters to me. Just once." Her daughter started to cry. "You matter to me, Mama. You do not have to prove anything." "I am not proving anything," Elena said gently. "I am just playing chess." On the day of the event, Elena woke up early. She ironed her best dress, a simple gray one she wore to church. She combed her hair carefully and pinned it back. Her hands were steady now. The fear had gone away, replaced by something calm and clear. She arrived at the chess club at noon. The event started at 1 o'clock. Already the main hall was filling with people. There were more people than Elena had ever seen there before. They came for the spectacle, to watch the Grandmaster play against ordinary people, to see how quickly he would win. Someone had set up a big demonstration board at the front of the room. It was like a giant chessboard standing up, with pieces that could be moved to show everyone what was happening in each game. Rows of chairs faced the board. Almost all of them were already full. Elena signed in at the desk. The woman there looked at her with surprise. "You are really playing?" "Yes." "Okay. You are number 7 on the list. It might be a few hours. You can wait over there." Elena sat in a chair near the back. She watched as the first player went up to challenge Petrov. He was a young man, maybe 25, wearing an expensive suit. He walked with confidence, shaking hands with people, smiling and laughing. Someone said he was a champion at his college. The game started. Petrov played white, moving his pieces quickly and surely. The young man played fast too, trying to match the Grandmaster's speed. But speed was a trap. By move 15, the young man was in trouble. By move 19, it was over. Petrov had won. The crowd clapped politely. The young man shook Petrov's hand and walked away, his face red. The second player was an old man, a professor from the university. He lasted longer, 23 moves, but the result was the same. Petrov won easily. Then came a 12-year-old girl, a local prodigy everyone talked about. She was supposed to be brilliant, they said. She had won every junior tournament in the state, but against Petrov she looked like a beginner. He crushed her in 18 moves. The girl left the board with tears in her eyes. One by one, the challengers came and went. A businessman who played online, a retired champion from another city, a woman who had studied with a famous coach. None of them lasted more than 25 moves. Petrov beat them all, barely looking interested. Between games, he drank water and checked his phone. Sometimes he yawned. Elena watched everything. She saw how Petrov always did the same things. He attacked on the king's side, pushing his pawns forward like soldiers. He brought his queen out early, putting pressure on his opponent. He made his opponents feel rushed, scared, defensive. And when they tried to defend, they made mistakes. Finally, after 3 hours, the woman at the desk called her name. Elena Martinez. The room got very quiet. People turned to look. They saw a middle-aged woman in a plain dress walking slowly toward the front. Some people looked confused. Others smiled, ready to be entertained. Elena walked to the playing table and sat down across from Petrov. The Grandmaster looked up from his phone. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or contempt. He put his phone away and looked at her like she was wasting his time. The club director came over looking nervous. He leaned down and whispered to Elena, "Are you sure about this? There is no shame in changing your mind. I can take your name off the list." "I am sure," Elena said quietly. The director straightened up and spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "Our next challenger is Elena Martinez. She works here at the club. Let us give her a warm welcome." A few people clapped, but most just whispered to each other. Elena heard some of the words. "The cleaning lady? This is ridiculous. How long do you think she will last? 10 moves?" "Less. 5 moves." Petrov did not offer to shake hands. He just nodded once, cold and formal, and reached for his king's pawn. The game had begun. Elena took a breath and looked at the board. All the noise around her faded away. The whispers, the doubts, the pity in people's eyes. None of it mattered now. There was just the board, 64 squares, 32 pieces, and infinite possibilities. Petrov pushed his pawn to e4, his favorite opening move. Elena had seen him play this move 100 times. She knew what would come next. She moved her pawn to c5, the Sicilian defense. It was a fighting defense, not passive. It told Petrov she was not afraid. The Grandmaster's eyebrow raised slightly. He moved his knight out. Elena responded, developing her own pieces. The opening continued, both players following known patterns, testing each other. Around them, the crowd started to settle into their seats. They expected this to be quick. They were already thinking about the next game or about dinner or about going home. But something strange was happening. The game was not ending quickly. Elena was not making obvious mistakes. Her moves were solid, reasonable, even good. By move 10, some of the club's better players began to pay closer attention. "She knows what she is doing," someone whispered. "That is not possible," another person replied. "She is the cleaning woman." "Well, she is playing good moves." Petrov was playing faster now, moving his pieces with sharp clicks against the board. He was attacking, as he always did, pushing his pawns forward, bringing his pieces toward Elena's king. But Elena did not panic. She moved carefully, defending, but also watching for chances. At move 15, Elena made a move that caused several people to lean forward. She moved her knight to a square that looked strange, almost random. Some people in the crowd frowned, confused, but the club's best player, an old man named Thomas, suddenly stood up. "That is brilliant," he said loudly. People turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" someone asked. Thomas pointed at the demonstration board. "Look, she has just set up a trap. If Petrov takes the pawn he is threatening, she has a counterattack that wins material. If he does not take it, she gets time to castle and her king will be safe." Petrov had seen it too. His hand, which had been moving quickly all game, now paused. He looked at the position more carefully. His face showed concentration for the first time. The crowd was completely quiet now. No one was whispering. No one was checking their phone. Everyone was watching. Petrov made his move, avoiding the trap. Elena responded immediately. The pieces moved back and forth, thrust and parry, attack and defense. 20 moves, 25 moves, 30 moves. Elena was still there. She had not lost. She was not even losing. People began to stand up, moving closer to get a better view. The club director stood with his mouth open, unable to believe what he was seeing. Other players who had already lost to Petrov came back into the room, drawn by the whispers that something impossible was happening. The cleaning woman was playing real chess. She was playing like a master. Petrov was no longer checking his phone between moves. He was no longer yawning. He sat forward in his chair, studying the board, his sharp eyes moving from piece to piece. For the first time all day, he looked like he was in a real game. And Elena sat across from him, her worn hands folded in her lap, her face calm and peaceful, waiting for his next move. The clock on the wall showed 4:30. The game had been going for almost 2 hours. Most of the earlier games had finished in 30 minutes or less. But this game was different. This game was still alive, still fighting. Elena looked at the position on the board. She had studied thousands of chess positions in the past 3 years, lying awake in her bed, seeing the pieces move in her mind. But this was different. This was real. The pieces were not in a book or in her imagination. They were right there in front of her, and every move mattered. Petrov had built a strong position in the center of the board. His pieces were working together, all pointing toward Elena's side. It looked dangerous. The people watching could see the threat. They waited for Elena to make a mistake, to crack under pressure, but Elena had seen this before. She had watched Petrov play this way dozens of times. He liked to build pressure, to make his opponent feel trapped, to force them into desperate moves. And when they panicked, he would strike. Elena did not panic. She made a quiet move, relocating her bishop to a better square. It was not flashy. It did not attack anything. But it was the right move, strengthening her position, preparing for what would come next. Petrov frowned. He had expected something different, something weak. He studied the board for 3 full minutes before making his next move. In the crowd, more people were arriving. Word had spread through the building that something unusual was happening. People who had left earlier came back. Staff members from other floors found excuses to peek into the room. Even the receptionist had left her desk to watch. Thomas, the old club champion, stood near the demonstration board, pointing out details to the people around him. "Look at how she has placed her pieces," he said quietly. "Every piece has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. This is not luck. This is understanding." A woman next to him shook her head in disbelief. "But she is just the cleaning woman. Where did she learn to play like this?" "I have no idea," Thomas said. "But she definitely knows how to play." On the board, the battle continued. Petrov pushed forward with his pawns, trying to break through Elena's defense. Elena responded calmly, moving her pieces to better squares, blocking his threats, creating small problems for him to solve. At move 35, something shifted. Elena made a move that caused a ripple of surprise through the expert watchers. She pushed one of her own pawns forward, not to attack, but to trade it for one of Petrov's pawns. "Why would she do that?" someone asked. Thomas studied the position carefully. Then he smiled. "She is changing the structure of the game. That pawn trade opens up lines for her pieces. Look, now her rook can move to that open file, and her bishop has a clear diagonal. She is not just defending anymore. She is preparing to fight back." Petrov saw it too. His jaw tightened. He had been in control of the game, or so he thought. But this pawn trade changed things. Suddenly, Elena's pieces had more space, more activity. The game was becoming more complex. For the first time all day, Petrov stood up from the board. He walked a few steps away, his hands behind his back, thinking. The crowd watched him in silence. Everyone knew what this meant. The Grandmaster was taking this game seriously now. When Petrov returned to the board, he did not sit down right away. He stood looking down at the position, calculating. Finally, he reached down and moved his queen to a powerful square in the center. It was an aggressive move, threatening several things at once. The crowd murmured. This looked dangerous for Elena, but Elena barely hesitated. She had seen this threat coming 3 moves ago. She moved her knight, a simple one-square hop that looked almost timid. Some people in the crowd looked disappointed, thinking Elena had missed her chance to do something dramatic. But Thomas gasped. "No," he said. "No, look. That knight move. It is not retreating. It is preparing." "Preparing for what?" someone asked. "I am not sure yet," Thomas admitted. "But something. Look at how it controls those squares. And look at where her other pieces are pointing." Petrov sat down heavily. He had seen something in Elena's last move, something that troubled him. He spent 7 minutes on his next move, longer than he had spent on any move all day. His face showed nothing, but his eyes were intense, focused. The game continued, move after move, both players thinking deeply now. The easy, quick moves from the opening were gone. Every move required calculation, foresight, judgment. Elena used almost all her thinking time on each move, sitting very still, her eyes on the board, seeing patterns that 3 years of study had taught her to recognize. Around move 42, the position became very complicated. Both kings were under some pressure. Both players had attacking chances. One wrong move from either side could end the game immediately. People in the crowd were barely breathing. They could feel the tension, even if they did not fully understand the position. They could see it in Petrov's face, in the way his hand hovered over pieces before pulling back. They could see it in Elena's stillness, her absolute concentration. A photographer from the local newspaper had arrived and was taking pictures. A few people were recording the game on their phones. Someone had called a local chess blogger, who was now live streaming the event. But Elena noticed none of this. For her, there was only the board. At move 45, Petrov made a decision. He sacrificed a pawn to open up lines toward Elena's king. It was a calculated risk, trading material for attack. The crowd stirred, excited. This was the kind of aggressive chess Petrov was famous for. Elena looked at the new position for a long time. She could see Petrov's plan. He wanted to bring his pieces crashing through, overwhelming her defenses with pure force. It was his style, the way he played, the way he had won hundreds of games. But Elena also saw something else. The sacrifice had cost him time. His pieces needed 3 moves to get into the right positions. And in those 3 moves, Elena could do something of her own. She moved her rook to an open file. It looked like a defensive move, preparing to protect her king. But it was more than that. The rook on that file had a future, a purpose. Elena could see it moves ahead. Petrov moved his bishop, continuing his attack. Elena moved her other rook. Petrov brought his knight forward. Elena traded her knight for Petrov's, simplifying the position slightly. With each trade, the board became clearer. Fewer pieces meant each remaining piece mattered more. It meant there were fewer places to hide mistakes. By move 50, the position had transformed. Petrov's big attack had not broken through. Elena had defended carefully, giving up material when she had to, but always keeping her king safe. Now the smoke was clearing and both players could see what remained. Elena had less material. She was down a pawn. But her pieces were better placed. Her rooks were on open files, active and dangerous. Her king was safer than Petrov's. Thomas was explaining this to the crowd. The game is still unclear, he said. Petrov has an extra pawn which matters in endgames. But Elena has more active pieces. The question is whether her activity is worth more than his extra pawn. Someone laughed nervously. I cannot believe we are even asking that question. She was not supposed to last 20 moves. No, Thomas agreed. She was not. But here we are. Petrov looked tired. He had played 6 games today, but this one was exhausting him more than all the others combined. He had expected an easy day, beating casual players quickly. Instead, he was in a real fight, burning mental energy with every move. Elena looked the same as when she had started. Calm, focused, patient. She had waited 3 years for this moment. She was not going to rush now. The game moved into a rook endgame, both players trading pieces until only rooks and pawns remained. These endgames were technical, requiring precise knowledge and calculation. One small mistake could turn a drawn position into a loss. Petrov pushed his extra pawn forward, trying to turn it into a queen. Elena brought her rook behind it, slowing its advance. They maneuvered move after move, both trying to find the winning idea. The crowd had grown to over 100 people now. They lined the walls, sat in every chair, stood in the doorway. The chess club had never been this full, not even for championship matches. And at the center of it all sat Elena, the cleaning woman in her simple dress, playing the game of her life against one of the best players in the country, and somehow impossibly she was not losing. The clock showed 6:30 in the evening. The game had been going for more than 5 hours. People in the crowd were hungry, tired, but no one wanted to leave. They had forgotten about dinner, about their plans for the evening. History was happening in front of them. The position on the board had changed again. After more trades, only a few pieces remained. Each player had a rook, a bishop, and several pawns. Petrov still had his extra pawn. On paper, he should be winning. But chess was not played on paper. Elena's pieces were coordinated in a way that made them stronger than they looked. Her rook controlled an important file. Her bishop aimed at Petrov's weak pawns. Her king was active, moving forward to help in the battle. Every piece was doing its job. Petrov could feel the game slipping away from him. The extra pawn that should have given him an advantage was becoming less important. The activity of Elena's pieces was creating problems he could not easily solve. He looked across the board at this woman who had cleaned his chess pieces 100 times, who had mopped the floor while he gave expensive lessons, who had been invisible to him for 3 years. Now she was the only thing he could see. At move 58, Petrov made a decision. He would go for broke, launch everything forward in one final attack. If it worked, he would win. If it failed, well, he would rather lose trying to win than play passively and drift into a draw. He pushed his advanced pawn one square closer to becoming a queen. Then he brought his rook to support it. Then his bishop joined the attack. Within 3 moves, he had created a massive threat. The pawn was only 2 squares away from the final rank. When it got there, it would become a queen and the game would be over. The crowd leaned forward. They could see it. Petrov was going for the win. His attack looked unstoppable. Elena sat very still, looking at the board. She could see what Petrov was doing. She could count the moves. In 3 moves, maybe 4, that pawn would become a queen. She had to stop it somehow, but how? Her rook was far away. Her bishop could not reach the pawn. Her king could not get there in time. The pawn seemed unstoppable. Some people in the crowd shook their heads sadly. She played so well, they whispered. But this is it. She cannot stop that pawn. Thomas was silent, studying the board intensely. He saw the threat. He also saw something else, something hidden in the position. His eyes widened. Elena reached out her hand. She touched her knight. No, wait, she had no knights left. She had traded them off moves ago. She touched her bishop. Some people thought she would move it forward to block, even though it would be captured immediately. At least it would slow the pawn down, but Elena did not move the bishop forward. Instead, she moved her knight, the knight that everyone thought she had traded off. But she had not. It was still there, tucked away on a quiet square, and no one had noticed it. Not the crowd, not the commentators, and for a moment not even Petrov. She moved the knight to a square that looked strange, almost random. It was 3 squares away from Petrov's dangerous pawn. It did not block anything. It did not attack anything important. It just sat there. Some people in the crowd groaned. "What is that move?" someone said. That does not stop the pawn at all. But Thomas was staring at the board like he had seen a ghost. His mouth opened slowly. "My God," he whispered. "My God, do you see it?" "See what?" the person next to him asked. Thomas did not answer. He was too busy calculating, checking, making sure. And then he started to laugh, a quiet, amazed laugh. "She has checkmated him," he said. "What?" "No, Petrov is winning. His pawn is going to queen." "Look at the knight," Thomas said. "Really look at it. Look at what squares it controls." People looked. At first, they did not understand. Then slowly, one by one, the strong players began to see it. The knight on that strange square was controlling 2 critical squares. If Petrov pushed his pawn forward, the knight would check his king. If Petrov moved his king to safety, the knight would fork his king and queen after the pawn promoted. If Petrov defended with his rook, Elena's rook would invade his position and create even bigger threats. Every path forward led to disaster for Petrov. The whispers spread through the crowd like wind through grass. She trapped him. It is a fork. The knight gets everything. How did she see that? Petrov sat frozen in his chair. His hand was halfway to his pawn, ready to push it forward, ready to win. Now his hand just hung there in the air, trembling slightly. He had seen it. The moment Elena placed her knight, he had seen it. The trap was perfect, complete, devastating. He had been so focused on his attack that he had not looked for her counterattack. And now it was too late. He pulled his hand back. He looked at the knight on that square, sitting there so quietly, so innocently. It looked like it was doing nothing, but it was doing everything. It was controlling the entire game. Petrov's mind raced through variations. What if he moved his bishop here? Oh, the knight still wins. What if he pulled his rook back? Oh, then Elena's rook comes forward and his attack collapses. What if he ignored the knight and pushed the pawn anyway? Oh, then the knight checks and forks and he loses even more material. There was no way out. The simple knight move had destroyed his entire plan. The room had gone completely silent. Even people who did not understand chess could feel that something important had happened. They saw it in Petrov's face, in the way he sat back in his chair, in the way his shoulders slumped. 7 minutes passed. Petrov did not move. He just stared at the board looking for something, anything, some trick he had missed. But there was nothing. The position was clear. The knight had done its job too well. Finally, Petrov looked up at Elena. She was sitting the same way she had been sitting all game. Calm, patient, her hands folded in her lap. But there was something in her eyes now, something that had not been there before. Not pride, not triumph. Just a quiet certainty, she knew. She had known when she made the move. She had seen all of it, calculated all of it, while Petrov was dreaming of victory. Around them, the silence was broken by whispers growing louder. What will he do? He has to give up his attack. But then she might win. The cleaning lady might beat the Grandmaster. Petrov took a deep breath. He was a professional, a man who had played in world championships, who had faced the strongest players on earth. He knew when a position was bad. He knew when he had been outplayed. He reached out and moved his rook backward, abandoning his attack, trying to minimize the damage. It was a defensive move, a retreat, the move of someone who had just realized he was not playing against an amateur. He was playing against someone who understood chess deeply, perhaps as deeply as he did. Elena responded immediately. She had not needed to think. She had known what she would play if Petrov retreated. She moved her rook forward, invading Petrov's position, creating new threats. The crowd erupted in excited chatter. The dynamic of the game had completely changed. Petrov was no longer attacking. He was defending. And Elena was pressing forward. Thomas was explaining to everyone around him, his voice full of wonder. That knight move, he kept saying. That was the move of a master. To see that far ahead, to calculate all those variations while under that much pressure, that is not luck. That is pure skill. People were taking more pictures now, recording video. The local chess blogger was talking rapidly into his phone, describing the position to his online audience. You are not going to believe this, he kept saying. You are not going to believe what is happening here. The game continued, but the mood had shifted entirely. Petrov was fighting now, trying to hold his position together, trying to find a way to salvage a draw. Elena was careful, not rushing, not making mistakes, but always pressing, always looking for the win. Another hour passed. The position simplified further. Petrov gave back his extra pawn just to stop Elena's attack. Now the material was equal, but Elena's pieces were still better placed. At move 73, the position reached a rook endgame. Both players had rooks and pawns, nothing else. These endgames were about technique, about knowing exactly which squares to control, which pawns to push, when to trade. Elena knew these endgames. She had studied them from books, practiced them on her cheap board at home. She knew the patterns, the ideas, the tricks. Petrov knew them too. But he was tired now, exhausted from 5 hours of intense battle. His moves were slower, more hesitant. Twice he touched a piece, then pulled his hand back, changing his mind. Elena's moves were still steady, still sure. At move 81, Petrov looked at the position for a long time. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He reached across the board with his right hand extended. Elena looked at his hand, confused for a moment. Then she understood. Petrov was offering a draw. He was telling her that the position was equal, that neither player could win, that they should agree to split the point. A draw. Against a Grandmaster. The cleaning woman would score the same as the world-class player. It was almost unthinkable. The crowd held its breath. What would Elena do? Elena looked at Petrov's extended hand. In chess, when someone offers you a draw, you have 3 choices. You can accept by shaking their hand. You can decline by making another move. Or you can think about it. Elena thought about it. She looked at the position on the board. The endgame was complex. Petrov was right that neither side had an obvious win. But was it really completely equal? She studied the pawn structure, the placement of the rooks, the position of the kings. Petrov's hand stayed extended across the board. He was waiting, trying to look confident, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders. He wanted this draw. He needed it. The crowd was frozen, watching. Even the people who did not play chess understood the moment. The Grandmaster had offered peace. Would the cleaning woman accept? Elena spent 3 full minutes looking at the position. She traced variations in her mind, seeing moves ahead, checking every possibility. Her face showed nothing. People watching could not tell what she was thinking. Thomas was shaking his head in disbelief. Even if she declines the draw, even if she loses from here, what she has done today is remarkable. A draw offer from Petrov. That alone is victory. The woman next to him disagreed. She should take the draw. She has proven her point. Why risk everything now? Because, Thomas said quietly, she is not here to prove a point. She is here to play chess. Elena finally looked up from the board. She looked at Petrov's hand, still extended toward her. Then she looked at his face. Their eyes met, and Elena shook her head. No, she did not say anything. She just moved her rook to a new square and pressed the button on the chess clock. The draw offer was declined. The game would continue. A gasp went through the crowd. Petrov's hand dropped to his side. For just a moment his face showed surprise, maybe even respect. Then his expression hardened again. He looked at the board, at the new position Elena's rook move had created. The move was good. It improved her position slightly, putting her rook on a better file. But it was also risky. By declining the draw, Elena was saying she thought she could win. And if she was wrong, if she made a mistake, she could lose everything. Petrov studied the position for 6 minutes. He was looking for the refutation, the move that would punish Elena for being too ambitious. But he could not find it. Her rook move was sound. The position was still difficult. He made his move, defending carefully. Elena responded, pushing one of her pawns forward. The game continued. Around the room, people were pulling out their phones, calling friends, sending messages. You need to get here. Something incredible is happening. The cleaning lady declined a draw against a Grandmaster. She is trying to beat him. More people arrived. The room was packed now, standing room only. Someone had set up a camera to live stream the game to the club's website. Hundreds of people were watching online, but Elena noticed none of this. She saw only the board, only the pieces, only the battle. 10 more moves passed. The position changed slowly, like a glacier moving. Petrov was defending stubbornly, not giving Elena any easy targets. But he was also not finding any way to create counterplay. He was just trying to hold on, to survive, to reach a position simple enough that a draw would be clear and forced. Elena kept pressing. Not wildly, not desperately. Just steady pressure, move after move, making Petrov solve problems, making him defend, making him use his energy. At move 95, something shifted. Elena advanced her king 1 square, a simple move. But that 1 square changed everything. Now her king was supporting her pawns, ready to march forward. Petrov saw the danger. He tried to activate his own king, but Elena's rook cut it off, keeping it trapped on the back rank. He tried to create threats with his own rook, but Elena had calculated those threats already. She defended easily, then returned to her plan. Thomas was explaining to everyone who would listen. Watch the king, he said. In endgames, the king is not just a piece to protect. It becomes a weapon. Elena is using her king like a bulldozer, pushing forward, supporting her pawns. And Petrov cannot stop it because his king is stuck. Move after move, Elena's plan unfolded. Her king marched forward. Her pawns advanced, supported by the king and rook. Petrov defended as best he could, but he was running out of options. At move 103, the position became clear. Elena had a passed pawn, a pawn with no enemy pawns to block its path to the queening square. Petrov's pieces could not stop it and defend everything else at the same time. Petrov looked at the position for a long time. His face was pale. He had played 6 games today. But this one game had exhausted him more than all the others combined. He had thrown everything at this woman. His experience, his knowledge, his fighting spirit. And it had not been enough. The club director was standing near the front, his hands clasped together like he was praying. He had known Elena for 3 years. He had said good morning to her hundreds of times, barely seeing her. Just a polite word to the help. Now he was watching her dismantle a Grandmaster move by move, and he could barely believe it. Petrov played his move, a desperate attempt to create complications. Elena calmly dealt with the threat, then pushed her passed pawn forward another square. Now it was only 3 moves from becoming a queen. Petrov's shoulders slumped. He looked at the board, then at Elena, then back at the board. He was searching for a miracle, but there were no miracles in this position. Just cold, clear logic. The passed pawn would queen. When it did, Elena would have an extra queen. And that would be the end. For a moment, everyone thought Petrov would resign, that he would tip over his king and acknowledge defeat. But he did not. He was a fighter. He would play until the very end. He made another move, checking Elena's king. Elena moved her king to safety. Petrov brought his rook to a new square, creating a last desperate threat against Elena's king. Elena blocked it with her rook, and then finally, Elena pushed her pawn to the 8th rank. She reached down and picked up one of the captured queens from beside the board. She placed it where her pawn had been. She had queened. She had a second queen now, and Petrov's position was hopeless. The crowd erupted. People were clapping, shouting, some even crying. The noise was deafening after hours of tense silence, but Petrov raised his hand, asking for quiet. The crowd settled down. Everyone watched. Petrov stood up slowly. He walked around the table to Elena's side. Elena stood up too, not sure what was happening. Petrov extended his hand again. But this time it was not a draw offer. This time he was resigning. He was acknowledging defeat. Elena looked at his hand. For a moment she seemed unable to move. Then slowly she reached out and shook it. Petrov held her hand in both of his, looking into her eyes. "Where did you learn to play like this?" he asked. His voice was quiet, amazed. Elena opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. Her throat was tight. Her eyes filled with tears. For 3 years she had kept this secret, this love of chess hidden inside her, and now finally someone was asking. Someone wanted to know. I watched, she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "I watched you. I watched everyone. Every night." "I learned," Petrov stared at her. "You learned by watching?" "By watching me?" Elena nodded. Petrov shook his head in disbelief. Then slowly a smile spread across his face. It was the first time Elena had ever seen him smile. "You did not just watch," he said. "You understood. You saw things even I did not see." He turned to the crowd and spoke loudly. "This woman has just played one of the finest games I have ever been part of. She saw combinations I missed. She calculated deeper than I did. She showed patience when I showed impatience. And that knight move at the critical moment, that was genius. Pure genius." The room exploded in applause again. People were on their feet, clapping and cheering. The photographer was taking picture after picture. The blogger was shouting into his phone, trying to be heard over the noise. Elena stood there, tears running down her face, overwhelmed. Her daughter had arrived sometime during the last hour, having heard from a friend what was happening. She pushed through the crowd and wrapped her arms around her mother. "Mama," she said, crying too. "Mama, you won. You beat him." Elena held her daughter tight. "No," she said softly. "I did not beat anyone. I just played chess. That is all I wanted, just to play." But she had done more than play. She had shown everyone in that room that skill has no uniform. That knowledge can hide in unexpected places, that the person you walk past without seeing might contain depths you cannot imagine. The club director pushed through the crowd. His eyes were red, like he had been crying too. "Elena," he said, his voice shaking, "I need to talk to you. Tomorrow, if you have time. We need to talk about your future." "My future?" Elena asked, confused. "Here, at the club, not as a cleaner, as a player. We need to get you a rating, get you into tournaments. We need to—" He shook his head, laughing. "We need to figure out how strong you really are." Thomas stepped forward too. "I would like to work with you if you are willing. I have been the club champion for 5 years. I think you could take that title from me next year." More people crowded around, all talking, all excited. Elena felt dizzy from it all. She had come here today just to play one game, to do one thing for herself. She had not expected this. Any of this. Petrov was packing up the pieces, placing them carefully in their box. He looked tired, but not angry. He caught Elena's eye and nodded with respect. Then he did something no one expected. He bowed slightly, a formal acknowledgement of a worthy opponent. Elena bowed back. As the crowd slowly dispersed, still buzzing with excitement, Elena sat back down at the table. The board was empty now, the pieces put away. But she could still see the game in her mind, every move, every moment. Her daughter sat beside her. "What are you thinking, Mama?" Elena smiled. "I am thinking that I am glad I pushed my cleaning cart through those doors 3 years ago. I am glad I stopped to listen. I am glad I took the risk. Are you going to keep playing?" "Yes," Elena said. "Yes, I think I am." The next morning, Elena woke up in her small apartment feeling strange. For a moment, lying in bed, she wondered if yesterday had been a dream. Had she really played a Grandmaster? Had she really won? Then she saw her phone on the nightstand. It showed 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Her daughter had given her number to someone at the club, and word had spread fast. Elena sat up and began reading the messages. They were from people she had never met, congratulating her, asking for interviews, inviting her to play in tournaments. One message was from the local newspaper, asking if they could do a story about her. Another was from a chess website wanting to feature her game on their homepage. She felt overwhelmed. She put the phone down and went to make coffee, needing to think. Her daughter came out of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, did you see all the messages?" "Yes," Elena said. "Too many. People want to talk to you. You are famous now." Elena laughed nervously. "I am not famous. I just played one game. One game that everyone is talking about, look." Her daughter showed her a video on her phone. It was the end of the game, the moment when Petrov had shaken Elena's hand and bowed to her. The video had been viewed over 50,000 times. The comments were full of praise and amazement. Elena stared at the screen, hardly believing it. This was her life now, this moment captured and shared with thousands of strangers. At 9 o'clock, Elena's phone rang. It was the club director. "Elena, I hope I am not calling too early. Can you come to the club today? I would like to discuss something important with you." "I have to work tonight," Elena said. "Actually, that is what I want to talk about. Can you come at 2 o'clock? Elena agreed and spent the morning in a daze, doing her usual chores but thinking about chess, about yesterday, about what might happen next. When she arrived at the club at 2, the receptionist greeted her with a huge smile. "Elena, congratulations. Everyone is talking about your game." Elena smiled shyly and asked for the director. She was led to his office, a room she had cleaned many times but never entered as a guest. The director stood up when she entered and shook her hand warmly. "Please sit down. Can I get you coffee? Tea?" "Just water, please," Elena said, feeling nervous. The director poured her a glass of water and sat across from her. "Elena, I want to apologize to you first. You have worked here for 3 years and I never knew you played chess. I never asked. I just saw you as well as the cleaning woman. That was wrong of me." Elena did not know what to say. She just nodded. "Yesterday you showed all of us something incredible. Not just your chess skill, but your courage, your dedication, your love for the game. You have studied for 3 years, alone with no teacher, no one to guide you. That shows remarkable character." He paused, then continued. "I have a proposal for you. The club wants to sponsor you as a player. We will pay for your tournament entry fees, get you a proper rating, maybe even find you a coach. In exchange, you would work here part-time, but not as a cleaner. As a chess instructor, teaching beginners, maybe working with some of our junior players." Elena's hand shook, making small waves in her water glass. "A chess instructor? But I have never taught anyone." "You taught yourself," the director said. "That is harder than teaching someone else. And I think our students would be inspired by your story." "What about my cleaning job? I need the money. I have bills, rent. The instructor position pays more than cleaning. Not a lot more, but enough. And it comes with one other benefit. Free membership to the club. Full access to all our resources, our library, our computers, everything." Elena felt tears coming again. She had cried more in the past day than in the past year. "I do not know what to say." "Say you will think about it," the director said kindly. "Take a few days. Talk to your daughter. This is a big change." As Elena was leaving the office, she almost bumped into Thomas in the hallway. The old champion was carrying a stack of chess books. "Elena," he said, "I was hoping to see you. These are for you." He handed her the books. "Study materials. I picked them out myself. They cover endgame technique, strategic planning, tactical patterns. Everything you need to take your game to the next level." Elena looked at the books, overwhelmed. "I cannot pay for these. They are a gift. From me, I insist." Thomas smiled. "I analyzed your game against Petrov last night. I found only 2 inaccuracies in your play. 2 small moments where you could have chosen slightly better moves. Everything else was perfect. Do you understand how remarkable that is?" Elena shook her head. "Most club players make 10 or 15 mistakes in a game. Even masters make 5 or 6. You made 2, and they were not really mistakes, just less than optimal choices. Your understanding of the position was nearly flawless." Thomas looked at her with respect. "You are not a beginner who got lucky, Elena. You are a master who has not played in tournaments yet. There is a difference." Over the next few days, Elena's life transformed. The newspaper ran a story about her, with a photograph of her sitting at the chessboard. The headline read, "Cleaning woman defeats chessmaster in stunning upset." The article told her story, the night shifts, the secret studying, the courage to challenge Petrov. People recognized her on the street now. Strangers came up to congratulate her. Some told her their own stories of hidden passions, dreams they had given up or were afraid to pursue. Elena's victory had touched something deeper than chess. It had shown people that it was never too late, that circumstances did not define ability, that courage could change everything. A week after the game, Elena received an email from Petrov himself. She was surprised. She had not expected to hear from him again. The email was short but warm. "Dear Elena, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to write and tell you again how much I enjoyed our game. It reminded me why I fell in love with chess in the first place, not for the titles or the fame, but for the beauty of the struggle, the joy of facing a worthy opponent. You gave me that joy and I am grateful. I have spoken to some colleagues and we would like to offer you an online training session once a week, free of charge, for as long as you want it. Consider it a small repayment for the lesson you taught me about humility. Please let me know if you are interested. With respect, Petrov." Elena read the email 3 times, hardly believing it. A Grandmaster wanted to coach her, for free, because he respected her. She wrote back immediately, accepting his offer. 2 weeks later, Elena played in her first official chess tournament. It was a local event, nothing fancy, held in a high school gymnasium. But for Elena, it felt like the World Championship. She was nervous as she sat down for her first game. Her opponent was a teenage boy, confident and quick. He moved his pieces fast, trying to intimidate her. But Elena remembered her game against Petrov. She remembered the calm she had felt. She took her time, thought carefully, and played her moves with confidence. She won that game. Then she won the next one, and the next. By the end of the tournament, Elena had won 5 games out of 6. Only 1 draw. She finished in 2nd place overall, behind a master who had been playing tournaments for 20 years. The tournament director calculated her new rating. 1800, he announced. That is an excellent first rating. Most beginners start around 1000 or 1200. Thomas, who had come to watch, laughed with delight. I told you, you are not a beginner. You never were. After the tournament, several players came up to Elena. They wanted to talk about her games, to analyze positions with her, to ask her questions. She was not invisible anymore. She was part of the chess community, an equal, a player who had earned respect. One older woman shook Elena's hand firmly. I saw your game against Petrov online, she said. I am 63 years old. I always wanted to play chess, but thought I was too old to learn. After seeing what you did, I bought a chess set. I am learning. Thank you for showing me it is not too late. Elena felt her eyes getting wet again. It is never too late, she said. Never. That night, Elena came home tired but happy. Her daughter had made dinner and they ate together, talking about the tournament, about the people Elena had met, about the games she had played. Are you still going to clean the club? Her daughter asked. No, Elena said. Next week I start as an instructor. I will teach beginners on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. How do you feel about that? Elena thought for a moment. Scared, excited, grateful all at once. Her daughter smiled. Mama, I am proud of you. Not because you beat a Grandmaster. I am proud because you did not give up on something you loved even when it seemed impossible. That night, Elena set up her cheap chessboard, the one with the chipped pieces. She did not need to study tonight. She just wanted to look at it, to remember the journey that had brought her here. 3 years ago, she had pushed her cleaning cart through those doors, tired and invisible. She had thought her life was settled, that at 52 there were no more surprises, no more chances to grow or change. How wrong she had been. Chess had given her more than a game. It had given her a community, a purpose, a place where she belonged. It had shown her that she was capable of more than she had dreamed. She picked up one of the knights, the piece that had trapped Petrov's attack. It was small and worn, but in the right position at the right time it could change everything, just like her. 3 months had passed since the game with Petrov. Elena's life was different now, but in ways she was still getting used to. She no longer cleaned floors at the Metropolitan Chess Club. Instead, she arrived each Tuesday and Thursday evening wearing regular clothes, carrying her own chessboard and clock. She taught beginners in a small classroom on the 2nd floor, the same floor she used to mop. Her students were different ages, different backgrounds. Some were children whose parents wanted them to learn something new. Some were adults like the 63-year-old woman from the tournament, people who had always been curious about chess but never tried. Some were immigrants like her, looking for a connection to their old homes. Elena loved teaching. She had worried that she would not be good at it, but she found that learning alone for 3 years had taught her patience. She knew what it was like to struggle with a concept, to practice the same pattern over and over until it made sense. She knew how to break down complex ideas into simple pieces. Chess is not about being smart, she told her students on the first day of each new class. Chess is about being patient, about learning from mistakes, about not giving up when things look bad. Her students listened carefully. They knew her story. Most of them had seen the video of her game with Petrov. They respected her not just because she was a good player, but because she had worked so hard to get there. On Friday evenings, Elena played in the club's internal tournaments. She was winning more games than she lost. Her rating had climbed to 1900 then 2000. She was close to expert level now, a rank that most players took years to reach. She had done it in 3 months. Thomas was her practice partner. They met on Saturday mornings, playing long games, analyzing positions, discussing strategy. Thomas was rated 2200, still stronger than Elena, but the gap was closing. "You are improving faster than anyone I have ever seen," Thomas told her one Saturday. "At this rate, you will be a master within a year." "A master?" Elena laughed. "That seems impossible. So did beating Petrov," Thomas pointed out. "But you did it." Elena's online sessions with Petrov happened every Monday evening. They used video calls with a chessboard shared on the screen. Petrov would show her games from famous players, explaining the key ideas. He would quiz her on positions, testing her understanding. He was a patient teacher, and Elena soaked up every lesson. "You have a natural feel for the game," Petrov told her during one session. "You see patterns intuitively that others have to calculate. That is a gift. But you also work harder than anyone I have coached. That combination is rare." "I have a lot of time to make up for," Elena said. 20 years without playing. "Sometimes a break is good," Petrov said. "You came back to the game with fresh eyes, no bad habits. And you learned by watching experts instead of playing weak opponents. You absorbed good chess from the beginning." Elena had never thought about it that way. Maybe those 3 years of watching and studying instead of playing had actually helped her. One evening in November, Elena received a phone call. It was from a woman who worked for a chess magazine. "We are doing a feature story on adult chess improvement," the woman said. "Your story has inspired many people. Would you be willing to do an interview?" Elena was hesitant. She did not like attention, but she remembered the woman at the tournament who had thanked her for inspiring her to learn chess. Maybe her story could help others. "Okay," she said. "I will do it." The interview took place at the chess club. The reporter brought a photographer who took pictures of Elena sitting at a chessboard, teaching a class, talking with Thomas. The reporter asked many questions about her background, her childhood, her journey to America. "Tell me about learning chess as a child," the reporter said. Elena smiled, remembering. "My grandfather taught me. He was a good player. Maybe expert level, though we did not have ratings in our village. He had learned during the war, playing with soldiers. After the war, chess was his escape, his joy. He taught it to me when I was 7 years old." "What do you remember most about those lessons?" "His patience. He never got angry when I made mistakes. He would just smile and show me why the move was wrong, what I should have done instead. He made chess feel like a gift, not a test. Do you think he would be proud of you now?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. She had not cried in weeks, but this question broke through her control. "Yes," she whispered. "I think he would be very proud." The reporter asked about coming to America, about the struggle to build a new life, about finding work as a cleaner. Elena answered honestly, holding nothing back. Her life had not been easy. There had been loneliness, exhaustion, moments when she wondered if leaving her country had been a mistake. But chess was always there, Elena said. "Even when I could not play, even when I had no board, I could think about chess. I could remember games my grandfather showed me. Chess connected me to him, to my home, to who I used to be." "And now?" the reporter asked. "Who are you now?" Elena thought for a long moment. "I am still the same person. Still a mother, still an immigrant, still someone who works hard. But now I also have something that is mine. Chess belongs to me. No one can take it away." The article was published 2 weeks later. It was 4 pages long with photos and diagrams from Elena's game against Petrov. The article called her the unlikely master and told her story from childhood to present day. The response was overwhelming. Elena received letters from people all over the country, all over the world. Many were from adults who had given up on their passions because of work, family, life. Elena's story made them reconsider. One letter came from a woman in California. I used to paint when I was young. I loved it. But life got busy. Work, marriage, children. I put away my paints 30 years ago. After reading your story, I bought a new set of paints. I am learning again. Thank you for showing me it is not too late. Another came from a man in Texas. I always wanted to learn piano but thought I was too old at 60. Your story changed my mind. I have been taking lessons for a month now. My fingers are clumsy and I make many mistakes. But I am happy. Thank you. Elena read every letter. She answered as many as she could, writing simple notes of encouragement. She had not set out to inspire anyone. She had just wanted to play chess. But somehow her private journey had become public, and people were finding meaning in it. In December, the club held its annual championship tournament. It was a serious event with a cash prize and the title of club champion. Thomas had won the title for 5 years in a row. He was the favorite to win again. But Elena entered the tournament too. She had been playing well in recent weeks. Her rating was now 2100, just 100 points below Thomas. She did not expect to win, but she wanted to compete, to test herself against the best players at the club. The tournament was a 5-round event spread over 3 weekends. Elena won her first 3 games, not easily but convincingly. She was in the lead, tied with Thomas and one other master. In the 4th round, Elena faced Thomas. It was the game everyone wanted to see, the old champion against the new star. The room was packed with spectators. The game was long and complex. Thomas played aggressively as he always did. Elena defended carefully, looking for her chance to counterattack. The game lasted 5 hours. In the end, it was a draw. Both players had played well, neither making serious mistakes. After the game, Thomas shook Elena's hand with a big smile. "You are ready," he said. "Ready for what?" "To take my title. Maybe not today, but soon. You played like a champion today." In the final round, Elena faced the other master, a man named David who had been playing tournament chess for 30 years. He was strong and experienced. Elena knew this would be her hardest game yet. The game started slowly, both players maneuvering carefully. Neither wanted to make the first mistake. By move 20, the position was still balanced, full of tension. Then at move 23, Elena saw something. It was a tactical sequence, a combination that would win material. But it was risky. If she miscalculated, she could lose quickly. Elena thought for 15 minutes, checking and rechecking. Finally confident, she made her move. David looked at the board, surprised. He thought for a long time, trying to find the defense. But there was no defense. Elena had calculated correctly. The combination was sound. 5 moves later, David resigned. Elena had won. The tournament director calculated the final standings. Elena had won 4 games and drawn 1. Thomas had won 3 and drawn 2. Elena was the club champion. The room erupted in applause. People were cheering, some standing on chairs to see better. The director presented Elena with a trophy and a check for $500. Elena held the trophy, feeling its weight. It was not a world championship trophy. It was just a local club award. But to Elena, it meant everything. It was proof that she belonged here, that she was not just a curiosity or a feel-good story. She was a real player, a champion. Thomas came forward and hugged her. "I told you," he said, laughing. "I told you that you could take my title." That night, Elena's daughter threw a small party at their apartment. Some of Elena's students came, and Thomas and a few other people from the club. They ate cake and talked about chess and celebrated. Near the end of the party, Elena stepped out onto her small balcony for a moment of quiet. She looked at the city lights, thinking about her journey. 5 years ago, she had arrived in this country with 2 suitcases and a heart full of fear. She had worked hard, saved money, built a life for her daughter. But something had been missing. She had been surviving, not living. Chess had changed that. It had awakened something inside her, something she thought was gone forever. It had given her back her sense of purpose, her confidence, her joy. She thought about her grandfather, about the lessons in their small village, about the love he had shown her through this ancient game. She could almost feel his presence, his pride. "Thank you, Grandpa," she whispered to the night. "Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for showing me that chess is more than a game. It is a way to connect, to grow, to be fully alive." Her daughter came out to the balcony. "Mama, what are you doing out here?" "Just thinking," Elena said. "About what?" "About how lucky I am. How one decision to sign up for that tournament changed everything." Her daughter put her arm around her mother. "You were always brave, Mama. You just did not know it yet." Elena smiled. Maybe that was true. Maybe courage was always there, waiting for the right moment to appear. She looked at the trophy sitting on her kitchen table through the balcony door. Next to it was her old chess set, the cheap one with the chipped pieces. She would keep that set forever, she decided. It would remind her of where she started, of the nights spent studying alone, of the faith she had in herself even when no one else saw her potential. Tomorrow, she would go back to teaching. She would work with her students, helping them learn the game she loved. She would continue improving her own play, aiming for higher ratings, harder tournaments. She would keep studying with Petrov, learning from him as she had learned from her grandfather all those years ago. But tonight, she would just be happy. She would celebrate this moment, this victory, this proof that it is never too late to pursue what you love. Chess had taught her many things. How to think ahead, how to be patient, how to find beauty in struggle. But the most important lesson was this: you are capable of more than you know. Your past does not define your future, and courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite it. Elena had taken that step forward when she signed her name on the tournament list 3 months ago. She had pushed past fear and doubt and embarrassment. She had sat down across from a Grandmaster and played the game of her life. And in doing so, she had discovered something more valuable than any trophy or title. She had discovered herself, her strength, her skill, her worth. As she went back inside to rejoin her party, Elena felt grateful for this unexpected chapter in her life. She was 52 years old, a chess champion, a teacher, a mother, an immigrant who had found her place in a new country through an ancient game. Her story was not over. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning.